Hey everybody, Alex Kazura, SteelersDepot.com, back with some Pittsburgh Steelers mock draft time here on the channel. My first mock draft went up on Steelers Depot earlier this week. I'll put a link in the description with an explanation and article for all my picks we'll talk about in this video. Wanted to go over it though in video form for you guys. So my first chance at predicting what the Steelers could and should do in April's draft. And just a disclaimer, this is a first mock draft. It is a very rough draft, and so for agency and my own knowledge about these guys will change over time. But we'll start things off in round number one with the 20th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. I mocked the Pittsburgh Steelers. Kenyon Green, the offensive guard out of Texas A&M, listed 6'4", 325. No quarterback in this mock draft. Certainly Pittsburgh could and should and will be looking at a quarterback in this draft, but wanted to do an exercise without one because every mock draft seems to have a quarterback in it. And if you don't go quarterback for whatever reason, you don't like a guy, you can't get a guy, etc., you really have to be, I think, all in on the offensive line. So when you do acquire that quarterback, hopefully the offensive line is largely taken care of. And certainly it's a position that needs to be addressed, whether or not you address quarterback early in the draft or not. And Green will do that as a strong, powerful, physical run blocker. He's versatile. He's gotten starts at everything but center. I envision him best as a guard, probably left guard. And in doing so, Kevin Dotson would go back to his natural spot at right guard, but Green potentially could play right guard as well. And I think, and I would hope, having Kenyon Green and Kevin Dotson, hopefully, healthy and better in year number three, would make hypothetically Kendrick Green look better at center if you were to stick with him by not adding anyone else in the draft or free agency. But offensive line such a big key, and for Pittsburgh, regardless what they do at quarterback, I think the focus will be similar to the way things were early in Ben's career, where it was ball control, run the ball, play, stifling defense, get pressure, get sacks, take the football away. And so you're going to need a good offensive line. And so that's why I went Kenyon Green at number 20. Round two, 52nd overall, a name I mentioned in a previous video, going linebacker Damone Clark from LSU. And so I talked about how I thought that felt like a fit so well, to a T in Pittsburgh. So I'd be remiss if I did not include him in one of these early mock drafts. Good size, 6'2" and a half, 240 pounds, good length, well-rounded skill set, can cover, can get off blocks, can play the run. Saw a lot of improvement from him in 2021. Had a tougher part to his career. Prior to that, went through a couple DCs, including some guys he didn't work well with, like Bo Pelini, and he was gone after a year. So once he kind of got on stable ground, had some good coaches, he really, his game really turned on in 2021. So he's high character. He's got a good story. He's not going to be an issue in the locker room, and someone I think that will endear themselves well to Pittsburgh. And again, playing, Power 5 SEC competition, typically what Pittsburgh gravitates towards. And certainly there's a need there, given Devin Bush's struggles. Now I think Bush will at least enter the fall as a starter, but Joe Schobert, that almost $9 million base salary, just too much to keep him at. Maybe he takes a pay cut, but I'd still look for a better and longer term option. And that guy in this mock is Damone Clark. Round three, going Rasheed Walker, the offensive tackle from Penn State, 6'6", 325. I said I'd go O-line heavy if I did not go quarterback, if the Steelers do not go quarterback, and so I meant that with offensive linemen in the first and third round. Walker's interesting. He had a lot of buzz coming into this year. Was thought maybe he could be a first round pick. It doesn't look like it's going to turn out that way. It's a good tackle class overall. Some really strong names at the top, and Walker probably didn't have a tremendous season, but I like his overall makeup. He's big, he's strong, he's got a good anchor, he has length. I think he's explosive initially. I don't think he's a tremendous athlete overall in space, in zone schemes and screen game and stuff like that. But just the aggression he plays with, the mentality he plays with, the grip strength that he has, all things I think that will endear himself well to new offensive line coach Pat Meyer, who seems to really prioritize the aggression and being quick with your sets and not playing passive when you don't have to. And that seemed to be Walker's game. He's physical, he's nasty, he finishes. The only concern here is he was a 3-year starter at left tackle at Penn State, no right tackle experience. So do you move Walker to right tackle? Does Dan Moore, who played left tackle last year, move to right tackle? Moore's right tackle experience is pretty limited to some early stuff at A&M and a little bit of work this summer when he might have been the backup. They weren't sure if Banner was going to be ready. He did get some training camp and I think preseason game action at right tackle and struggled there. So there is a question about the fit, but overall, you got Green, you have Walker, maybe a free agent ad. You have a transformed in a good way offensive line in 2022. Round four, I'll project a comp pick here for Bud Dupree. Don't think it'll be a third, could be, but I'll go a little more conservative here until we know with a fourth round compensatory pick and choose Alontae Taylor, a corner from Tennessee, 6 foot, 196. I think it's maybe one of my more questionable picks in terms of, should they take a corner here? There'll obviously be questions and answers, to be known about what happens with Joe Hayden, Akella Witherspoon, even Terrell Edmonds, a strong safety become a need. It will be if Edmonds is not re-signed. I just like Taylor's size, his length, the ball skills of former receiver. Pittsburgh's like those kind of conversion guys, although the success of those guys like Brian Allen, Justin Lane hasn't really worked out. But someone who's got some versatility, and not that he reminds me of Cam Sutton, but Taylor was a Senior Bowl guy that moved around at the Senior Bowl just in the way that Cam Sutton did back in 2017. So corner depth always important. You can't have too many of those guys. He's got size that can match up against some of the bigger bodies that play on the outside in today's NFL. Round six, going back to offense here with Danny Gray, the receiver from SMU, 5'11 and a half, a buck 82. Certainly receiver could be taken earlier here. And again, free agency may plug some of those holes, those earlier needs and stuff like that that could shuffle the deck here. And even without that, regardless, I think receiver could be early as a day two, second round type of need, but only have so many draft picks and to work with and so many needs to address. So going Gray here primarily for speed, primarily for big playability, averaged over 15 yards per catch in his career. Over 15% of his career receptions landed in the end zone. And so you want that vertical threat. I've talked about it so much. That's a missing component for this offense. It's just generally speaking, a slow offense, not a ton of speed. Chase Claypool, who runs fast, doesn't play to that time speed. And so you want a dynamic threat, a vertical threat. I think Gray can be that guy. Size is a bit of a concern. Was listed much bigger on his SMU bio, listed like 6'2", 200 pounds. He came in a couple inches shorter and about 15 pounds lighter. So there are some size concerns, but you want that speed, you want that big playability, and I think you're willing to sacrifice size for that speed. Two 7 round picks here. We'll start with Isaiah Polamau, the safety out of USC. And yes, that is Troy Polamalu's nephew. And so there's an obvious connection. That's kind of why I went with it. He's got good size, has had some struggles in his career, later in his career, what hasn't been maybe the prospect that the Trojans thought he would be. Played free safety, could maybe, do both free safety, strong safety, and make an impact on special teams. I will say, and I researched it beforehand, and it felt like he was part of the draft pool, but there has been some confusion, some debate about whether or not he's actually in this draft class. And some of the COVID stuff in terms of that extra year of eligibility has still made these waters a little muddy. So I'll admit I'm not 100% sure if he is even in this draft class or if he did go back to school. USC unfortunately does not have a spring roster posted. It says coming soon, so I can't even verify if he's still actually showing on their 2022 roster or not. So someone can let me know in the comments below. But I have seen him included in mock drafts. I saw videos of him training for what I presume was the combine. But I don't think he was invited. So he might have gone back to school. So if he has gone back to school, my replacement here was Tyson Anderson from Toledo, a long safety, versatile, played in the slot, played in the box, and a MAC guy. And you got to put in a MAC guy in most of these mock drafts. That's kind of my replacement there if Polamau is not draft eligible. And finally, with my other 7th round pick and final selection in my Steelers 2022 mock draft, I am going Leddie Brown, the running back from West Virginia, 6 foot 215. I know running back on service may not seem to be a huge need, and it certainly is not, but you want to get some better actual runners there behind Najee Harris. Not that Brown could be a one-to-one replacement if Harris ever were to go down. Benny Snell, not much of a runner, good special teamer, but not much of a runner. McFarland has done really nothing, and Kalen Balage's role is still unknown to me. And so you want to add some decent running back depth there, another option, another name. It'll be hard to get a free agent to come in and pay him money to back up and sit on the bench. So you do it with a day 3 draft pick. And Brown, to his credit, has size, productivity, good hands, kind of a natural catcher, plucks the ball away from his body. He runs hard, he runs downhill. I think he has the ability to be a decent special teamer as well. So I know Pittsburgh, I know fans would like speed and the McFarland type of guy. But Pittsburgh really prioritizes a couple things with running backs. They want guys with size. I mean, there's so many of those type of examples. Sans McFarland. They want guys who played against good competition. So again, Power Five type of guys. Brown is, and somebody that was productive and kind of was a workhorse or main back in college. And Brown was back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons in 2020 and 2021. So that will do it for my mock draft. I'll put up all the names on screen right now to recap who I took here in my first edition. And again, these things will change in a lot of ways. And certainly you could, you know, uh, draw up this mock draft in a million different ways. Go quarterback at 20, and that changes the whole complexion of the rest of the mock draft. You could go with a receiver earlier, with like Jahan Dotson from Penn State. If you were to slip in the round two, that'd be a tempting name. But just my first version at it to kind of get a lay of the land and get some names out there and get us all talking about the 2022 NFL Draft. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm sure you guys have many. Like and subscribe if you have not done so already. Appreciate you guys watching, and we'll talk to you soon.